what's going on, everybody, and welcome
Hey,
to another episode of Carbonite Bounty BS with me and the nerds here, guys. Um, Another highly anticipated, controversial episode that you guys will be able to go over things with us. So definitely excited. This may be a hot take, so I hope everybody has their popcorns out because I think this should be a fun one. But before we even dive into our Last Jedi review, let's let DP let you guys know where to find us.
nerdcyclopedia.com, people. Make sure that you guys are going on to our site and getting all your favorite social media outputs and platforms that we are on, Nerds at Nerdcyclopedia. We are also on Facebook in a Facebook group called called Carbonite Bounty BS, a Star Wars group. If you are watching us on YouTube right now, make sure that you're hitting that subscribe button and also that notification button. So anytime that we're on, you know that we're on. Also, if you are listening to our podcast, we are on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, TuneIn. Make sure that, anywhere that you listen to your favorite podcast, we are there. And most of all, leave us some feedback, not only on a Facebook group, but you can also email us at nerds@nerdcyclopedia.com. We love getting your feedback. We love hearing from you. And all that good stuff. And if you want to leave some extra good stuff for T Mitch there, who's about to give that hot take.
I'm not going to let you do that to me today.
Then we are all here for it.
Right. Well, guys, I mean, I don't know where to start, so we'll just we'll start with Ken because he seems to have some kind of voice of reason for this film. So, Ken, let's just get your review of what we just watched.
So this film, right? Initially, I felt like, well, this kind of missed. This film was kind of like a dud in the middle of two outside pretty good films, Force Awakens and Rise of Skywalker. But now watching it, and I watched it a couple times again, I feel like this film kind of captured all the elements of the last trilogy that we loved. I think it had the resolve of good to stand up against evil, and then it had the fact that just that scene we were just talking about at the end with Snoke, Ben Solo, and Rey, and that Ben realized he wasn't lost. There was good in him, and he had to come back and join the good side. There was still Solo in him, and that's why that scene was very Return of the Jedi. It was very like Anakin, Darth Vader looking at Luke, looking at the Emperor, and saying, "I'm not fighting this guy's war anymore. I'm coming back to the family." And all through this film, there were all these points where there was, the hero is being, destroyed, but then they got second life and they came back. I mean, I thought it was a really entertaining film. I didn't see all the bad stuff that I originally felt. I loved the opening. I mean, the opening scene was the opening 15 minutes of the movie was tremendous. I mean, it was fantastic. Poe finally coming to his own and becoming a rebellion leader. And it had all the comedy, the whole talking to Hux. Is this thing on? Can you hear me? I mean, that was great Star Wars comedy. I mean, that's what the original trilogy sort of had for me. It was great stuff. And then the end, let's say the last half hour of the film was just bomb. Now, I didn't really like seeing Luke, but I understood why Luke had to be hidden. I mean, he hid himself. He couldn't train anymore. He saw the disaster that was to ensue if he continued training. He tried, it failed. He sort of gave up and went into seclusion. It sort of had to happen. He had to be sequestered away on this rock and just sort of live his life and not do his thing. Here comes Rey pulling him back out, like making them all get back into the fight. And I think he was a little pissed because here was this, this human that he knew nothing about. I mean, honestly, he knew nothing about her or what her lineage was. And she had such an influence over him and started to reel him back into the whole fight. So, I mean, it had all the conflict, all the good and evil, and I mean that we all love about these films. I mean, it had a lot of good stuff in it. It didn't follow all the timelines like everyone, T. Mitch, would like to have happen, but it did follow the story and the guidance. Yeah, there was good stuff in it. You know, come on. It was a good film. We paid our money. We got a good ticket back. I don't know.
When you say it followed the stuff, you mean the initial crawl when the movie started?
Yeah, it did.
I mean,
it did.
Yeah, I got you.
It did. I mean, that's the point of these films. You see that opening 3 paragraphs, and you're expecting to see that played out, and it did.
Gotcha. All right, Hitch. Maybe
right.
Hitch can like kind of.
So for me, I mean, here's the thing. I agree that the first 15 minutes are fun. I like Poe. Poe's probably my favorite character in this movie. I really do enjoy the banner. And it starts out pretty well. I don't know what I think about this mechanism, like the whole physics of these bombers attacking the dreadnought, right? These slow-moving bombers where it seems like we've seen much better technology already with the Y-wing bombers. I was thinking we should see a bunch of Y-wings here, right? So we didn't. I mean, for me, it's a good scene, though, because it shows you the stakes. It shows you what people are willing to go through. And it shows you how, you have to be willing to make sacrifices to make victories. And from a purely military perspective, the reason aircraft carriers are ascendant in the Navy is because planes or small fighter craft are a lot cheaper to make than huge capital ships. And so you would make the trade that the rebellion makes here 10 times out of 10. 10 times out of 10, you would make this trade. And so the whole military reaction to this engagement on the rebellion side baffles me the whole time. None of the military stuff they do makes any sense. And to me, I think the good scene there are good scenes in this movie. It's not like some sort of 0 out of 0 where nothing clicks and nothing works. I mean, Yoda's in it, for goodness sake. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I mean? Like this movie has some stuff going for it. And they're doing things like when the ships run out of regular fuel, they're just letting them go, right? They're letting them get blown up instead of having them shoot like turn around and go into hyperspace and blow up a whole bunch of their ships. It seems like that's something they should be doing all the time in this series now, right? It seems like something they should be thinking, hey, what if they go to hyperspace and jump through us and kill everybody, right? It would just seems like it would make sense. So I don't know what their plan was. Their plan is just to sneak away at the end. Is Holdo just supposed to explode and we're to believe that the Empire would not be able to find the rebellion in this crappy base on Salt Cat Planet? The plan doesn't make any sense. This movie was framed around the instant where that lightsaber explodes. And it feels like it was written to make that happen. It feels like they started from where everybody was when that happens, with Finn and Rose on the ship about to get executed, with the fleet getting blown up, with them about to go into that hyperspace, the hyperspace missile, with them about to, have the lightsaber explode right after this fight scene. It's the fulcrum the whole movie turns on, and the circumstances that get us there are not properly delivered. They feel a bit contrived. I mean, there's people that can leave the fleet but come back. There's hyperspace jumping capable things in the fleet. They're not using them to get people away from the First Order. There are mechanisms at their disposal they're simply not using. So that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And so there are problems with how this is written. And that is the crux. It feels like the way the movie looks is excellent, and there is a better story in here somewhere. Like you could just use different dialogue and tell this exact plot beat for beat, and there would be a better way to do it. But exactly what that is, it's hard to put my finger on, beyond the fact that I disagree. Like they're saying, like, "Oh, Poe, you're a terrible leader. You sacrificed all your troops." Well, look, I mean, it's Star Wars, not Star Tag, right? Like this is some serious stuff. People get blown up all the time in Star Wars. So I think that for Leia, after going through the Battle of Endor and after going through, her capture at the hands of her own, dad, would be a little bit more hardened than this. and she's not. So I don't know that, and I think, and I said this when we first saw this movie in our initial review, DP. I said this, that I thought they really missed the opportunity to tie the Leia story up appropriately, and the fact that they didn't, I thought was a real mistake.
Wait, did you say that Leia wasn't hardened?
Like, she didn't seem like, she's saying they sacrificed too much to kill that dreadnought. That doesn't.
Yeah.
That's not something that character should say.
So she was expelled into space.
Oh, I know. I don't mean she's personally, like, physically weak. What I'm saying is that character should understand that sacrificing some of those smaller assault aircraft that, quite frankly, seemed obsolete to kill the dreadnought is the type of exchange you're looking to make all the time.
So she should make that judgment call every single time when there should be losses to the good.
Right.
So we have to lose these ships in order to gain whatever.
I just don't think that the way that the whole way that she treats Poe in this movie seems weird.
Yeah,
like she's pushing him down. She's got to keep him pressed down for some reason. It doesn't feel like it makes sense. Like, why is that? Because the attack was successful.
She saw Luke in him. She saw Luke. She didn't want to lose him. Like, she saw Luke. Like, she lost Luke, technically. Lost him. So maybe she didn't want to lose him again.
I just think it's bad fortune that they wrote this story to have Leia survive and Luke not. It just it doesn't make sense even from a thematic standpoint. It would make sense for Leia to go here. And it would make sense when Ben blows up the bridge of that cruiser. That's the time for her to go. That's it. And it makes sense from a story point of view, right? It makes sense from a story point of view for that to be what happens, because you would imagine that would be the thing that would pull Luke out of, hiding. And he would come back and do almost exactly the same thing, except not be an illusion and just be there and disappear like Obi-Wan, right? Like I said last week, that's what I would have preferred.
Great motivation for Luke. Yeah. I mean, that would make, you make a lot of great points and stuff. Logistics, it seems like what you're arguing and everything. And I think with Rian Johnson, since he wrote and directed it, he totally ignored a lot of logistics and stuff. I mean, I don't know how hardcore of a Star Wars fan he is and everything, but I mean, I see like a lot of your points and stuff. When I start, the first part of I think the thing that sort of immediately struck me when I first started watching it is that the flair wasn't as there like it was in like the J.J. Abrams like first film and everything. So you didn't have a lot of those zooming out flight sequences and everything, the camera following like the ship and the wonderment of like different spaces and everything out there. You didn't have that zig and zag and zang that JJ likes to put on his polish and stuff. But you had a different type of film with Ryan, and I think just overall, like, from beginning to end, I thought it was a solid film. I thought it told a story, and I thought it presented its theme well. Its basic theme was like letting go and moving forward, letting go of the past and, presenting something better for the future or something different than what was, took place in the past and everything. And you had a lot of that just being hammered down with like, Luke, Yoda, Leia, all like our favorite, main characters from like, before, this was their film to just start transitioning. We got the new characters coming in and everything. We got our new heroes and stuff. It's time for the old guard to let down and just let go, and like I said, that thing kept just being repeated throughout the film until like the very end when you really got like our main heroes about to go on their next adventure. To me, this could have been like the final film of the not the trilogy. It would have been like a two-parter or whatever. This could have been a final film of that, and they could have did something totally different for the next film. What I thought it missed though was some of the logic that they tried to start in The Force Awakens that they didn't continue into this film. You know, some of the stuff I was like, okay, well, I'm waiting for like, you know, Knights of Ren, you know, some more of that to be explained and everything. You know, I'm a little sick of Kylo being such a petulant, you know. I mean, I know that's the way he's written and everything, but his way is just sort of grating on me. And then it just didn't really make sense how he's feeling conflicted. Well, I get it. He's feeling conflicted, very conflicted about Rey. But at the same time, he just goes back to being just Kylo and like, you know, the bad guy and everything, wanting to, you know, take down Luke and stuff. I'm like, okay, you had an arc you were going towards and everything. And not to say that you had to go all the way towards like the light side. It was a conflict between like the light and the dark side, and that Kylo was going back and forth. But I would like to see him go a little further towards like the light, you know, and for it to be better written in a better way. Rey, I don't know about Rey, you know, in this film. She was exciting in the first film and everything, but Rey in this film, she just didn't seem to have that much, you know.
Spark.
Yeah, spark. And you know, they focus a lot on her, but it seemed more to me like Poe and Finn's film, you know, more Finn than anything. And I liked Rose character, you know, I liked her. I didn't like Luke at the beginning throwing that lightsaber away, because everything that we seen beforehand, as far as like how sacred the lightsabers are with Jedi, it was just sort of just disregarded. And I thought with Ryan, I'm like, okay, I know you're trying to tell like, you know, a thematic just letting go story, but come on now, this lightsaber is like the holy, you know, it's like the sacred, you know, the sacred artifact, you know, that Jedi has, and you just gonna have Luke just, you know, toss it over his shoulder and say like that was it? No,
but he had to, sort of, because he was.
I understand, because that's the way. That Luke is old, and this movie is a transition of getting rid of the old guard, old ways. You know, the Jedi needs to die. You know, it needs to be something new. I get that.
Yeah.
You know, but it just seemed to me, Luke, this is something that you just want to set down and not, you know, just toss. I think that's sort of spit in the face of a lot of like, you know, hardcore, you know, fans and everything, that he just tossed it aside like that. Now, if he had laid it down and say, no, okay, Rey, this is something that I've used to hold, like, you know, very dear and stuff, you know, it could have been better written, you know, a better scene. But like I said, it's still a solid film. I like the direction, you know, that Ryan decided to take as far as a whole, like, you know, like I said, letting go again. He has some really good scenes, like the red room scene, you know, with the fight and everything. You know, that was an excellent scene. The one scene where they was in the sort of like the catacombs, the caves and stuff on the one planet with the red, you know, sand and everything. You know, I liked all that. I just like the whole thing, period. There was a lot, like you said, Ken, there was a lot more jokes in this movie versus what we had in The Force Awakens. Force Awakens seemed like it didn't take itself as serious. I mean, I'm sorry, as humorous as this one. And we got a lot of jokes that were there. Sometimes they seem like out of place, but other times, okay, I see what you're doing. You're trying to inject that humor and everything. Okay, all right, that's fine. And they introduced us to some newer, you know, stuff I didn't see before, like, you know, that one you know, casino type place and everything, you know, that element and everything. A lot of new creatures and stuff, you know, like I said, Finn and Rose, you know, this dynamic and relationship. I was digging that. It was some good stuff in there, and as far as a lot of the hate that goes towards this movie, I don't see it. I don't see it in the ways that, you know, maybe Tim Mitch or, you know, the Steel City sees it. You know, I thought it was a pretty solid film.
All right, so
Here
where
we
do
go.
I start? No, you know what? So I'll say this, right?
But dude, it's been waiting like what, a year and a half for this. You've been waiting.
No, so I'm gonna say this as polite as possible, right? The movie looks good. The guy did a good job on the film. The main part of this whole film, and I've been saying this for over a year and a half, right? If this guy did his Matt Reeves take on the Batman, I'm fine with that. This is a side story. You're taking your own direction, your own spin on Star Wars. The problem is if we rate this from a singular film, it's a decent film, but the problem is it's in a trilogy, right? So for DP, for your instance, we start with Ray and we go over Force powers. So Ryan Johnson then decides to take a page out of the Disney Star Wars book. And what does he introduce? The wills, the journals of the wills. So if we go that route, then Luke doesn't become this person because he has the books, he's read the Jedi texts. So the way that they portray Luke, that's why people were mad because we know about the wills. We've seen it in Rebels, right? So Luke never would have took this path of this being this guy that shut off the Force, a broken man, right? The second part is, as we discuss the character of Luke, right? I just don't understand how you can be so broken, yet you can be so involved in the Force. I mean, he knows what's going on in the universe. He knows his sister needs him still. He knows he failed his nephew. So why would you just shut yourself off and not try to redeem him like your father, right? That's a classic arc. He could have went there. The fact that they ended the movie to where he couldn't even show his face physically, I thought was super cowardice. Um, the astral. So you're saying this guy is strong enough to actually project himself all the way across space, universe, but we couldn't see this person of Luke because this is an old man Luke that would be in our eyes maybe on the backside of the Force. So he's this strong right now to project himself and do this stuff. So we missed the whole Luke arc. And on top of this, the thing that makes me I think the angriest as far as this is, so he can see Yoda and Yoda's talk to him, right? So if he can see Yoda and talk to Force Ghost, don't you think that Qui-Gon Jinn would have talked to him and explained to how Qui-Gon Jinn was basically Anakin's father, right? So you don't think that Qui-Gon Jinn would have not explained to Luke this whole time about his father and spoke to him and made him more of that? Because Luke is more of that gray Jedi at this point, right? He said the Jedi are dead. The order has changed. It's time to take a new path, which is why he read the checks of the will. So the fact that they kind of just sidestepped this and took his own spin, I mean, I agree it could be a two-parter, but I just don't like how he just took his own idea, dropped this in there, took some lore of the wills, and then based on the characters we see, it doesn't add up. It's a good movie, but it doesn't add up.
He shouldn't have never been on that island. That was a whole missed opportunity. Like, having Luke Mark Hamill not interact with a lot of our favorite characters and everything was just, I think, just a whole missed opportunity there. Especially if you're going to bring them back and everything.
Wasn't he following the way of the people that he looked up to? Yoda sequestered on a planet. Obi-Wan Kenobi disappeared. I mean, all his mentors did this. They all disappeared.
But at the same point, he can't talk to Obi-Wan as a Force Ghost. I think other Jedi like Qui-Gon and some other Jedi who were able to speak as Force Ghosts would have told him this isn't the way, right? I mean, it would have to.
This is not the way.
I mean, it's really not.
And I mean, to T. Mitch's point, I mean, if that's the case, then if Luke is going on this particular path and decides that it's not really, I guess the way or whatever, then no, he can sort of lead himself in a different direction instead of doing everything every other mentor did before him, and actually just, they position Luke in a tropey type of situation where you got your old mentor over here. So you got to have your other hero, the young hero, come and try to get advice and train under him while he's on this, like, other far out place and everything. That's so tropey, what we really want to see, or what I really want to see, is our older heroes interact, together. They missed opportunity with Leia, Han, and Luke just being back together, because that's what you had in like the previous trilogy and everything. You could have written this in a way where we have our final, a reunion with our old characters and stuff, and have it be written in a better way. Like I said, I still stick to my, this film, is still a solid film for what it is and everything, but I see a lot of the holes that were started in the first film carried over into this film that didn't really gel based on a director and writer director who decided he wants to go his own direction and forget a lot of the lore and everything that happened before then. Maybe Filoni should have consulted him and say, okay, well, if you're going to do it this way, you still got to make this make sense, to make this make sense, and make this make sense. Not to make the fans happy, just to make logistical sense of what you're trying to do and everything. Coming as a casual, like I said, I mean, it's still solid and everything. Now I can see like the logistics and stuff that you guys are referring to could certainly piss off. Making Luke weak, I guess, to a degree, or just depowering him. I guess it's just for big hardcore Luke Skywalker fans, it's a thing that pisses them off.
Well, here's why Luke is weak here, because the way we're explained what happened with Ben, it seems certainly that Luke was, one, in the wrong, and two, owes some debt here. He owes Ben a little bit because he did factually come at him. So Luke not coming to make that atonement bugs me. It bugs me that he copped that out, especially because the only reason to do that is to make it more like impressive that he was able to make his image appear out of nowhere, right? That's the only reason to do that. And I think that, last week we talked about a lot of scenarios where Luke shows up and pulls down all the flying stuff that's there, or blows up the cannon that they're bombarding the doors with and really like slows them down, or a lot of stuff makes more sense than he didn't get in that X-Wing that they showed us, like Chekhov's gun. And
right.
Yeah.
They showed it under the water, and you
don't really use it. I mean, unless you thought you was going to use it in the next film.
But we know they don't. What's funny about this is that Chekhov's gun is paid off in The Mandalorian, which is probably why we were so psyched. When I saw that X-Wing come in, I was super psyched. It's interesting, like the dichotomy here between this Luke Skywalker and the Luke Skywalker that is very much alive and well in the Disney Star Wars universe is striking. That Luke is energetic. He's interested in teaching people the Force. He's interested in doing it the right way. He explains things right. How did that Luke come to this end is an interesting question that is now asked. But what is going on with Luke here and what Luke does it's not as satisfying as it should be. And Luke Skywalker, the character, deserves a better ending conflict than this. He deserves.
I mean, unless Luke, as I mean, I don't know what he's been through like these years to make him such a bitter and just like, okay, well, I just give up.
That's important. That's important right there. What has he been through?
What has he been through? I mean, unless he's just saying like, okay, every time I try to do something with these First Order people, these Empire people, take them down, they just keep coming back stronger and everything. What am I supposed to do? I can't get the Jedi, so I train these Jedi,
and it failed. It failed. He tried and it failed. So he's doing and I don't think he looked weak in this film. I think he looked.
I don't know.
He looked like a dude that just been through a lot, and he might have seen that he made some mistakes, and he's just doing what he needed to do to protect himself and maybe his lineage. I mean,
that Jedi Temple being destroyed was probably like it seemed like that was the backbreaker right there.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
That is the biggest mistake. That is the biggest plot mistake in the entire Star Wars universe. Saying that destruction was complete, saying verbally they're all dead, stupid.
Yeah, they ruined it. And just think about it, though. I see what you guys are saying, but once again, he has R2, right? You don't think he's seen what his father did? Like, this is playing out again. And then on the end of this, he's a Jedi Grand Master. He's the last guy, right? The last Jedi. So you really think he's just going to be that broken? He's a Grand Master. He's talking to Yoda. You really think he's
he's still a man at the end of the day. He's. You guys are making Luke Skywalker to be this like, okay,
he's a Grand Master.
Yeah, I understand that, but he's still human. If you want to call it that. A man could be broken. A man could be bitter. A man could be, defeated. To that point.
We know here that what actually is happening is the emperor is just beating his ass. He's beating his ass in the information game. He's giving the right, propaganda to Ben, and he's doing it from afar. And so, yeah, Luke is weak because he's sitting there physically with Ben, looking at him, and the whole time, the Snoke or whatever we're saying, if we're trying to be specific, this movie, Snoke is pouring poison into Ben's ear right in front of him and doing the same thing to Luke, who's susceptible. So that sort of thing being insidious and getting him for a minute, I understand. But for him to then vacate his responsibility as the Grand Master of the Jedi Order to the galaxy, who he's really responsible to is the life of the galaxy that produces the Force, doesn't seem like something that Luke would do anyway. And then for him to, again, shirk his responsibility to go and deal with Ben Solo by sending his Force ghost to do it instead, just to me is the type of shabby,
he could have got the X-wing and flew up in there and did his thing and everything. I can appreciate and agree.
Like, why not go? Why not go? Because you don't want to die.
You end up doing that anyway. So it's like I said, we don't know what like we were saying, it seemed like the Jedi Temple thing. So if what we've seen with all this mythology and everything that happened with the Jedi, them going up against the rise of the Empire and everything, they were supposed to be the ones that keep the order, and the Empire and everything broke all that. So if he's the last one or the final one, and his temple is defeated, and his order and this Empire reincarnation comes back and everything, making star killer bases and stuff, another Death Stars and everything. What is this guy supposed to do? His whole temple has been destroyed. Is he motivated to Grandmaster and everything? Is he motivated to train more, Jedi to try to defeat these people? It's just crazy.
But the thing is,
I don't know.
the thing is, they're not all dead. We have to keep that in mind, right? Because
they're scattered across the galaxy.
When Rian Johnson went down this path and opened the path to the Wills, guess where he's at? I think the real name of that place is Skellig Michael, but whatever planet he's on, right? Guess where that is, because we went down that path with the Rebels, which is a Force Nexus, which is why he's so overpowered. So how do you die sitting on a Force Nexus, being overpowered, and yet at this point we know that you had a Force gateway that you could have jumped into and went into the world between worlds, because you can do this now, because that's where Rian Johnson wanted to take us. Also, where's Ahsoka?
I don't think that's where he wanted to go.
I think, though, but when he showed the Wills and did what he did, we opened that door. I don't
think he realized what he I guess can of worms he was opening up in that case.
Because listen, this is why Mark Hamill got pissed, and this is why all the people got pissed, because Rebels is going on at this point, and we're seeing that. So this is why everybody got excited, and then Mark Hamill comes out and basically, literally, doesn't officially say it, but bro, he was done with Star Wars, and they wrote him off. He was so pissed during the process and kept professional, but this is the straw that broke the camel's back with Mark Hamill and the whole direction that Kathleen Kennedy wanted to take us.
But there's still, my thing is, if they stuck with it, I feel like there's a landing for them to stick. I feel like there's a lot of checks here that are open. They've written a lot of checks in this movie, and tonally, I think DP has hit on something where I thought this too, where this feels like the last movie in a trilogy. This feels like the last movie. Feels like they're saying we're done, and I think you really hit the nail on the head with the real theme of this movie: let go of the past and move on. Which fans steeped in nostalgia, I don't think are gonna react. Great. I mean, what can I say? It's just that may have been a mismatch. But I feel like if you make another movie where you further the themes that you introduce here, where you say, no, what you think you know about the Force is actually wrong. Here's why you were wrong before, right? If the next movie is all about this is correct, this is correct, this is correct. No, Rey is nobody. No, the Force is actually sort of a random attribute. It's a randomly assigned attribute. It is democratic. It is a lot like talent in our universe. You know what I mean? It's randomly dispersed among populations. Then I think that story exists, and I think you can tell it. I think you can tell the story of that universe. What they did is instead, it felt like I said last week, like we zig here and then zag again, and they say all those things we said were different last time. let's pretend that never happened, guys. Let's pretend like we only made this one movie, and it we'll cram a whole other trilogy's worth of plot into it, and pretend like that's fine. But that's a conversation for next week or next episode.
You had the very end there where like the very last final scene and everything was a boy picking up a sword, like, you know, it's like any guy, any
broom boy, you mean?
You know, you had that there. That's like the end of a that's like the end of a trilogy. That's like the end of a, like, you know, final, like, okay, we said all we needed to say. There's no need to say anymore. Why do another movie? Or I don't know why would you ever continue a story after what you presented in this? Everything is done. You know, we'll get to the Rise of Skywalker. We'll get to like the nitpicks. And I think I was in this Facebook group just conversating with a lot of folks about that. I think a lot of the thing I'm hearing over and over again, whether you liked or disliked this movie, is Rise of Skywalker that everybody hates. You know,
that's the one it's not as interesting to talk about because it's less controversial. You know what I mean?
That's the one that sort of either undid everything you liked about this movie or didn't follow up on everything that you did like about this movie and everything.
I feel like you can think both.
Yeah, the rise of Skywalker, I will be defensive on that one. You know, I can defend that. So maybe I'll be on the opposite side. I'll be DP for the Rise of Skywalker.
That movie was so bad it gave the whole world COVID. That's how bad Rise of Skywalker.
The timing, you know, and to be honest, like I said, if you guys haven't had a chance to find it, if you talk about this movie, if you read what Colin Trevorrow was going to do at 9, oh my gosh. You want to talk about taking a left instead of a right turn, and then just I don't even know. You guys have to read the script.
Are there scripts out there of what George Lucas would have did with this trilogy?
They're never going to let that out. Yes, there is. There is a 7, 8, 9 that was written. We will never see it. I mean,
he was more on the Last Command side of things. I mean,
he wrote it.
What is that? The Last Command.
Timothy Zahn wrote the last trilogy, and that was with Thrawn and the end of the Empire and it really got into Luke and the training and the Jedi Academy and him rebuilding that and under the fist of the Empire that was trying to build itself back out. So that was the Lucas last trilogy, was the Last Command trilogy. But
why in the heck would you not want to do something of like that?
They ripped them up. They took the idea of 7, 8, 9. This is the whole controversy if you hear the name Kathleen Kennedy, which is George's number 2 at this time, right? She's always been George's number 2. She decided that, as I said with 7, they wanted to take Star Wars another direction and maybe capture different audiences. So they decided to make 3 separate movies by 3 different directors with not one linear script. It's rated as we go. These movies weren't done previously.
Well, I mean, and that's exactly how they came out and everything. So
it wasn't. They weren't linear scripts.
But think about the plotting too, because the prequel trilogy, which was written by one guy in one thought process, right, is set 10 years apart, like multiple years apart, 3 years, a whole war apart. And these movies, they're written by different people. And their film, they have different themes and different outcomes and different ideas, and they're set 15 minutes apart from each other. It's 15 minutes later, this next movie started. It's not enough time. It's not enough time to breathe.
What I'm seeing that's missing from this trilogy, from everything that we've seen with the prequels to Clone Rebels, and even the 4, 5, and 6 and everything. Is that thing, Ken was talking about of, okay, well, the Last Command or whatever, the end of the Empire, you had the struggle between the Jedi and the First Order / Empire and everything, and this big thing, what do I want to say here? 2 different ways of life. 2 different ways of being and everything. One here and one there. And I don't think this set of trilogies really explored that to the point where it would have made everyone satisfied. I think the closest thing that could have came with was The Last Jedi, this particular movie. But even in that, it only explored like themes and stuff. It didn't say, oh, what I'm so used to politics at this point, you know, with these movies and everything.
There wasn't any.
It wasn't nothing.
Yeah.
Ken, it wasn't any of that in this trilogy stuff. That's what I was digging, you know, from
the First Order really didn't have a
Reason.
government like the Empire did. Like you knew who the Round Table was.
No.
They
were that trophy
Bureaucracy.
guy, you know, who okay, we just want to destroy planets, but why? You know, we want to defeat like the resistance and the rebel, but why? What are you doing? You know,
that's a good point, DP, because you know in the you know, let's call it the middle trilogy. I mean, you knew where things were, you knew who the leaders were, you knew what the politics, the government, what the thought process was, why they were doing this. This one is just like Hux just hated them for no reason. Like, why? Because I don't know, they liked green and he liked red. You know, he had there was no they weren't affecting him. They weren't attacking his cities. They weren't going after him in any way. It was just the resistance, right?
Why are they resisting?
Why? Yeah, why were they resisting? We knew why the rebellion was resisting, because they were blowing up planets.
Right.
Well, we didn't know what the resistance was really doing because they weren't really doing anything.
That's why we had Canto Bite. I feel like that whole scene again was to get the plot moving to the point where Finn and Rose are on the ship so that they can be there when the thing blows up, because that's how they wrote this and how they can see the whole story. But they're on Canto Bite and we see the underbelly, like what is the First Order, and it's greed. It's just greed, and they're very clear about this. You know, we're in the casino. We talk about the what looks like slavery. I mean, really slavery. And definitely, you know, they're mistreating these animals they're racing, like almost as bad as they treat actual racing dogs in our reality.
They didn't concentrate enough on that point, Hitch. I mean,
Rose said it like 3 times. These people are terrible. They came to our planet, they stripped everything, they took it all so they could feed their war machine. I mean, she says it.
How is it affecting the rest of the galaxy? I mean, we see, okay, you got these elites. You know, they're feeding off the hungry, you know, the people that are, you know, on the ground and everything, you know. But we only get like, you know, hints of that, and then we're back to Rey and I almost could care less about like Rey and Kylo at that point, you know.
That is such a okay. So this forced dyad or whatever, where they can talk to each other, and then not. And listen, the thing is, we talked about it last time. If this is like Kylo Ren's fault for going in that mine, getting stuck, and now you're all tangled up with her, right? It would be satisfying. So I'm glad that they don't explain it here, because when they choose to, it makes me very, very mad.
Well, keep in mind at this point too, me delving in this movie before I even watched it, Snoke wasn't the Emperor at this point. So the fact that they killed dude off, he shows no fight, no lightsaber. This guy, really?
He had no backstory that I believed. Yeah.
Listen, they had no backstory written for him.
They get fooled by what he's fooled by, which is like when your kid is holding something behind their back. This is what beats him. That's what beats him. Holding your hand behind your back, and it's like moving it around.
Come on, right? So, and this guy can essentially play with their mind or whatever he was doing. So this is the guy that poisoned Ben, but yet he gets fooled by some behind the back lightsaber trick.
So he was more of, you know, I see him as more like the Emperor, and then Snoke is the apprentice. Now
that was supposed to be the idea.
Kylo
wouldn't be a bad idea if that's what they did.
Kylo Ren was like the up and coming, the one to replace Snoke.
Yeah, it was like a rule of 2. Yeah, it was a rule of 2, but they decided to cut it.
They cut it, right? Yeah, I mean, but you gotta say that scene, like as DP said, the Red Room. I mean, that
that was sick. The Praetorian Guards, that saved the movie for me. That scene,
that saved the movie for you.
That was it. Yeah, that was it.
What else? I mean,
I love Snoke with Rey too. Snoke toying with Rey was great, where he smacks her with the lightsaber, and he's like, this is
that was
right.
like,
In the
I'm
back of
totally
the head,
in
it's
control.
coming around and
Yeah, I'm so in control. I'm totally in control. And
I
honestly,
don't understand Stokes' motivation though. I'm
So wait, right? Snoke has force powers to grab the lightsaber and smack her, right? But yet Ben can just drive that, and he sees it coming, and he can't stop it.
he
That's what you're
couldn't
gonna.
see, he couldn't see that he was controlling the saber on his
Okay.
throne and not
Okay.
the one in his hand. Yeah,
and,
that was
and in my opinion, like I said, I've said this before. In my opinion, you have this incredible, sumptuous, excellent special effects shot of this hyperspace collision, right? That's
which
so
was
cool.
great. I mean, that was
Yeah.
amazing.
That's so cool. If you shift this story so it's just a little bit off, and that's what kills Snoke, right? And they all wake up from this hyperspace stuff, and Snoke's just like exactly as dead as when Hux finds him, like just like just like super dead, and they all just have to deal with it. That would be, in my opinion, more interesting than what we got. And like I said, you don't have to change the characters, you don't have to just change up the order a little tiny little bit. And I think we're there. But because they structured the writing and the pitch and the story and the premise around that synchronization, right?
Yeah.
They couldn't slide the story to make this all sort of fit right. And instead, we have Kylo Ren winning, just outright winning. Right? That's I feel like that's the story of this. And for him to go back into an apprentice status, this next movie feels stupid. Feels like a backwards move for the character.
So why? Okay, so he decides that he wants to team up with Rey to take all of take them all. He has this thing with Rey, this emotion and everything. But yet he's after he still wants to destroy Luke.
So at this point, when they get to the Red Room or where the Praetorian Guards are, this is where he makes his full ascendancy as a Sith Lord. So the idea of the Sith Lord, just like when Sidious took down his, you have to kill your master, right? So that's your ascendancy to the top. So at that point, he's made his full ascendancy to the dark side. His pitch to her is to join him on the dark side and rule the galaxy. So at this point, he's like full bad guy, but he's a Sith Lord, right? And as Hitch says, we now find out that he becomes an apprentice here in, I don't know, 20 minutes or whenever this.
Last time when I told you were in charge, I was just kidding.
Yeah, right? You know what I mean? But yeah, this is his full ascendancy as a Sith Lord, even as we go to the planet, with the Luke Skywalker scene. So yeah, this is his full ascendancy to the dark side at this point.
Okay. All right.
Or as we thought his full ascendancy to the dark side was.
DP, that scene is basically, that Padme meme where it's like, well, let's go kill Snoke, and then Padme would be like, and then save the Alliance, right? And then we're gonna save the Alliance. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, he wants to team up with her and kill Snoke, and then take his job and ruthlessly oppress the galaxy, right? Like that's the difference there. She wants to kill Snoke and save her friends, and Ben is all about his own dominance. And we see that. I honestly do, and I like that scene with Hux, right? Like the Supreme Leader is dead, long lady Supreme. Like that's cool stuff. When he's just like, when he's, just belittling him. I like that stuff. It makes sense. And then I like the position he's in at the end of this, right? Thwarted and yet ascendant and triumphant, right? In charge. I want to see what happens with that character. And I'm sad that they decided to replace the character that ends this movie as Kylo Ren Ben Solo with the person that starts in the next movie. Yeah. I wish they would have let this character have another movie.
We're not talking about that next film yet.
I feel like we're pretty late in the show, and it's okay for us to say whether or not, because that I feel like the understanding that these movies are released 2 years apart, each movie frames your expectations for what's to follow, right? And so after one movie, you're like, okay, a lot of stuff can happen in two. Okay, two, we're narrowing down on the possibilities of what could actually happen at the end. And in my opinion, the stuff that happens in episode 9 is outside the cone of possibility created by episode 8. It's somewhere else, so it's just incongruent.
So the question for you, Hitch, and you, T. Mitch, at what point in the movie, when you first saw this live, did you start just like, what the, just it started being just a left turn for you guys and everything?
I think when Leia yelled at Poe, and I was sitting in the theater, it made it flipped my entire mood, because I was trying for like Poe. I was like, wow, that worked. Way to go. The long shot thing the Rebels did work. They risked everything and pulled it off just like they did in a lot of cases in the trilogies, right? And then Leia comes in and she's like, that attack was idiotic and it blew up our whole fleet. Well, what the hell were they going to do with those slow bombers when they're getting chased down by the First Order anyway? They just would explode. They would have been worthless.
She had seen the same actions fail, though. I mean, she had already seen like the gung-ho, swashbuckling, her husband was directly influenced her behavior toward Poe. She directly saw Han Solo behavior in Poe and was like, she'd seen this fail time and again. Maybe we didn't see it in the trilogy,
right? Because the Death Star was still there.
Han Solo was a loose cannon, and he would just go do stuff because he felt like that's what needed to be done.
And Luke's dead, and they didn't blow up the shield on Endor, and they didn't blow up the Death Star in the Force. Like, I think you're just wrong because she should be in the opposite camp. She's the one sitting in the cockpit of the Millennium Falcon and hearing C-3PO say, hey, the odds of doing this are real low. Shut up. Don't ever tell me the odds. Shut that thing up. She's the one that shuts him up. She turns him off. She hits the button.
I mean, it sounds like you're saying she should have had more faith in the Force.
Not just that. She needs, there's no universe where, at the end of this, there's 10 of them left. So you're saying that that at least making their lives mean something here so that you can get away. I mean, that's exactly what these ships and what these crews are trained and exist to do. And listen, I'm not saying that their sacrifices in some way minimalistic. That's a great scene. The way they portray they give us humanity for all these characters, and they do such an excellent job, right? They make you believe that these are real people. They give you feel a backstory to them. I think it's excellent. And so it works off fairly, right? By the skin of their teeth, they pull it off triumphant. And we go back to the cruiser, and all of a sudden we're told those feelings you had, viewer, that were happy were wrong. And that to me made me feel uneasy about the whole movie because it seemed like it didn't understand the situation it put itself in. And I understand now why. And it's because if we're talking about where the start of the story is, it's where that lightsaber explodes on the ship. And they had to do all this stuff to get us there.
I hear what you're saying, and I think that's sort of like a little, I don't want to say not lazy, but it was lazy for them to try to create that conflict between them two. If that was the case, just if Ryan's whole point was just create conflict between Luke from Poe and Leia and everything, it was lazy writing because that's tropey. It's tropey to a point where you just see this all the time and everything. The shotgun, gung ho, playboy and everything. All of a sudden, he gets taken down by his general, and they you did good that time, but look what look all the stuff that you didn't do or whatever this time and everything. To take them down. I understand what you're saying, and I think that that was just a way for them to create conflict.
Yeah,
just for the sake of creating conflict.
Leia in the middle trilogy wasn't a leader. She was.
Yeah, but keep in mind
she was getting there, but now in this film, she's Mon Mothma. I mean, she is in charge, so she's got a lot more responsibility. She has to think about things in a different way.
But Hitch's point, she's been through stuff before.
Yeah, Hitch has the ultimate point. I mean, keep in mind as we first see her, and we find out before we see her. So, what about the people that got hacked in half by Vader to save her? Those are sacrifices that had to be made. So, as Hitch says, the payoff at this point, all these soldiers have killed themselves to keep you alive. How about the people who've died to keep you alive and keep you hidden from your father? So at that point, as Hitch says, the payoff doesn't make sense because all these people have made these sacrifices to keep you alive, and all of a sudden now you don't, you know what I mean? You're not willing to make that same payoff.
But at the same time, to DP's point, if that conversation is her telling Poe, don't be so exuberant, these things have a price. Look at what that cost, right? That would make sense. That's not what she says. She says, that's reckless, you're demoted. That's the opposite of what that doesn't mean. It's not the same sentiment, right?
Tropey.
But I feel like you hit the nail on the head. I feel like you hit the nail on the head, and I feel like in many ways this illustrates the difference between us and why it's so great to be here on the show. Is that I spend all this time grinding my gears about like what would make sense and why doesn't this make sense, and you go, oh, it's the story reason they need a conflict, and it's just like correct.
Yeah. He's definitely like he's the scale, if you want, the pendulum. He's the voice of reason. So you're the middle of the scale.
I'm not saying it's right, but that's it gets sort of like tricky when you try to like you get all these hands in the pot and everything, and you got to choose directions to go. And when you choose the direction, you got to commit to that direction. And sometimes it's not all the way, where you may want to go, but they nevertheless chose that direction, and this is the path that we're on. Unfortunately.
I feel like there's a version of I feel like this movie could have worked. I feel like this movie could have worked, and it could have worked exactly like this, but I think that their commitment to this was not strong enough to make it happen. It's like trying to change from a 4-3 defense to a 3-4 defense and not going all in and getting a bunch of tweener linebackers. You know what I mean? 7 tweener linebackers and nobody that actually does the job that you need them to do.
Well,
I agree.
Question, T-Man, what was the direction that you like?
My breaking, I had two. So the initial was like the whole Luke Skywalker, Rey training, the whole like the drinking the milk, the whole like selling Disney Galaxy's Edge. This is the whatever that was, the green milk, him drinking the breast milk, whatever that thing was. Was like, so at that point in the movie, because I think it's like an hour and a half in, I'm kind of
did you walk out at that point?
I said something very loud in the theater. I said something loud in the theater that was like, what's that,
Because it's 5 years of development and filming and 3.5 hours of actual Star Wars movie time where Luke has not really shown up.
Right, so he drinks some milk or whatever, so that's a payoff for Galaxy's Edge for you to buy this stuff that's nasty as hell, I'll say, at Galaxy's Edge. And then the second part was like, so the whole Leia Force sensitive, her powers thing, I was like, oh, so we're going here now. And that's where like this whole like, and we'll get into episode 9, and she's not a Jedi master that can train, but yeah, like the whole her using the Force. But then people couldn't sense her, so it really throws the whole her having the Force abilities really just blew this open for me, because I'm like, so then the Emperor, as we know, we're thinking he's dead or whatever, but then the Emperor would have found her, like, too many moving parts. This accelerated with too many things.
I think her having Force powers is believable. I think her even using the Force powers is believable.
But she would have them, but like the fact that you use them would trigger something.
The real issue is that what we needed at the end of this movie, who we needed to be here was Luke's.
Correct.
Again, the Luke job. We talked about the Han job. Now the Luke job. Yeah. The Luke job is to train the Jedi, right? And reluctantly do it, and do it mostly because there's nobody else to do it, and be pulled out of retirement. So that's a possible, possible satisfying conclusion here. Another satisfying conclusion is Leia being the only person that can do it and having some of these nascent abilities and having to read the material, right?
Yeah.
And learn
why wouldn't she use her powers if she was there, by the way, right?
At least she can use her powers of predetermination, let Jedi have, so they can see the next move to.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
get him out of this.
If you did that, then that's my thing. Like the whole Leia having powers opens up a whole new can of worms.
I would have liked to see her wield a lightsaber. I think that would have been been cool. And I get it. I get what you guys are saying about that she should have been more like rebel leader and gung ho, but she has a lot more responsibility here.
But that's not what she's saying to him. She's not saying there was a cost and the cost was too high. She's saying you were reckless. You shouldn't have done this thing, and the exchange wasn't worth it. Which
maybe she was harsh. Maybe she was a little bit over the top with it. But you got to admit, when she woke up and stunned him with the blaster, that was a great scene. That was like she put a stop to everything. There was a little bit of pandering going on, and like he's not allowed to know this plan. Why? If they explain that, because maybe if they explain that anytime Kylo Ren gets up in your dome, he stays there, and that causes him to just be able to see what you're doing sometimes, kind of like
Harry Potter 5.
What about this whole Codebreaker plot? That was sort of just hilarious.
Yeah, that was way that for me. That was the only thing that was a little bit weird. Like,
what the heck is all that?
What a microcosm for that movie, right? You get told there's this shiny, bright Star Wars movie that's coming out, and you get real excited for it, and you go and you can see it, and it's right there. But what happens is you get sidetracked, and you end up with this, grimy, slippery,
dirty,
guy.
yeah.
That turns out to be, by the way, to be able to do all the stuff of the initial guy. So I remember the first time I saw this movie, I wasn't sure if I was supposed to understand that this was the actual right person the whole time, right? But on the rewatch, that doesn't make any sense at all. And there's no way that's the case. He should not have been able to complete this task, though, or Maz Kanata shouldn't have sold it as being so impossible, or she should have been in this movie instead of just on a holo.
Yeah, it was a little bit weird. It was a little bit weird. They were asking us to swallow a lot and accept a lot of new story that really wasn't really there to begin with. So
that's why they bounced all those checks, man. That's why, and let's be clear, not financially. Financially, they did fine.
Right.
This is plot wise. And look, we nitpick. I mean, I still watch this movie, and I thought, it's cool.
It's a Star Wars
and there were a lot of fun scenes, and I feel like, I think that what's interesting, and we talked about this in our group chat, is that there's been a weird cultural appropriation, or it's sort of a weird insidious undercurrent of dislike of this film, and I feel like it's important when you find yourself having similar ideas as people that have bad ideologies, that it's important that you have introspection to determine why you don't like something or why you like something, right? And I think that what is interesting about this podcast is those things that you hear complained about, namely that the women shouldn't be as powerful or interesting as they are, which doesn't make any sense to me ever. And that Rey is OP for some reason, even though she's in the Neo here, right? Like, we all get that. There's a Neo in every one of these movies. I feel like those complaints are specious, and it's weird to me that anybody would focus on these things when there are so many things that bug me that have no.
Oh yeah, the female heroine is, I
political
think,
connotations or anything like that.
You could have hated this movie just with the movie.
It's much more stuff to dislike or even like about this movie. Dislike, if you want to talk about the hate, but to break it down is if we're talking about diversity, other elements in this movie and everything. To hate it because of that, that's stupid. It's a movie. Times have changed. Ideas and ideologies have changed and everything, especially coming towards that. I did like the way that this trilogy brought a lot more diversity and everything to the Star Wars universe and stuff. Some things I still have questions about, but I mean that may be another podcast and everything. But for the most part, they made their mistake to me on not committing to direction, or whoever made the decision to make 3 separate directors and written by 3 separate people, instead of actually just even having just one writer just do the whole trilogy and everything, just didn't make any ounce of sense and stuff, and from the stuff that you set up in The Force Awakens and not have it really paid off in this movie, it's sort of a letdown to a degree. To have this movie stand on its own, to me, like I said, is solid. But if you're going to start something in the first thing, commit to it, keep it moving, and then if your plan was to have this just be the end, let it be the end.
Right. I agree, guys. But yeah, man, it's been a pretty contentious episode, I'd say the least. I mean, this next one, it'll be fun. I think I've taken a different path.
Isn't it 3 hours long?
Oh my god!
Yeah, I've taken another take on episode 9, so I'll probably.
I'm
be
excited
the
to see this. I don't think I've seen this since maybe
I've seen it. I've seen it on there, and I think it's on every other day on TNT or TBS. So, I mean, it's
What
literally
did
on
they know?
rewind.
Oh,
It's on rewind now.
before we go, can I say that the print looked great? The 4K looked great. I mean, it really looked good on the
yeah.
TV. I mean,
It
really,
does.
really just awesome, sumptuous visuals. We talked about how the way they use the color red in this movie is actually really awesome.
Yeah.
And I say it like if this is one of those. I may have said this about like episode, maybe episode 3 or episode 1, where I feel like if you muted this movie and put different subtitles up and put scrambled the language or something, like you could turn this into something more than it is, and that's that's something.
Definitely, man. But yeah, guys, it looks like we finish up the final part of the sequel trilogy here next week. And until then, guys, this is the way.
This is the way.
It's the way.